T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Midheaven Podcast, where we assess the cosmos for you. Thanks for joining us. This is myself, Candace Marie, and Mike, the Peace Dealer, a.k.a. Hermes.
Your Mercurial Magic Mike. Strip and Tarot.
Happy December, everybody. Hopefully you guys are doing well.
And happy Sagittarius season. You might be watching this after, but it is the new moon right now, so.
Yeah, we're filming this as Sag season is just starting.
By the time you see this, I'll be retired smoking vaporizers on a yacht with my new rich friends from Croatia and Venezuela.
It's the Sagittarius season is off to quite a feisty start, huh?
A wild start.
Mm-hmm.
I liken it to a rocket ship that's blasting off into space at long last.
So Mike and I were kind of talking because we've talked to you guys a lot about some of the outer planet transits that have been happening. We rapped a little bit about Pluto changing signs. We talked about Jupiter changing signs, going back into Aries. We thought it'd be fun to kind of do a little bit of a reflection on Saturn and Aquarius and kind of just everything that's happened over the last 2.5 years. Some of you guys may know in the spring or early spring 2023, we're going to see Saturn leave Aquarius and it's going to move into Pisces.
And the sequence of that is just so terrifying, but I guess I can embrace it. I think Saturn Aquarius is a transit that will look back to 2-3 years from now and be like, oh my God, like that happened. Like we went through all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that I love, the first thing I'd like to talk with you about, which I think is important in retrospect, is we do know that Saturn and Jupiter, 0 degrees Aquarius, brought social distancing. It brought literal censorship. Versus now at the 19 degree, I won't say we're coming out of that, but we are coming out of the aftermath. And, you know, it makes me look more into what if we see a return of this versus how we might see a evolution of this. But, 19 degrees away from that, we've gone through some of the craziest limiting Saturn of words, Aquarius, and knowledge, and all these controlled narratives that have really been pushing forward. Versus now with the final square, we're almost seeing like a pushback in light of new evidence. So it's really interesting.
I mean, it's been interesting because it's been a pretty highly aspected Saturn transit. When you think of just the Uranus square, we've also seen the nodes move into Taurus and also Scorpio. So it was not really a situation where many people could just kind of skate by. Yeah. I mean, you don't skate by with Saturn transits anyway, but the more that I reflect back on things, this really makes me truly believe that cardinal signs really are the boss. Because if we look at 2019 coming into 2020, as we saw that build up to Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter in Capricorn, in retrospect, we could look at that and go, oh, there's going to be some global event. But now I'm like, man, there was a global takeover.
Yeah.
Yeah, governments, ended up having more power and control, and so did big business. And there was just a real emphasis in being able to kind of dictate and determine and call the shots, right? So it's interesting to see Saturn go from the cardinal earth sign of Capricorn moving into Aquarius and seeing that it set the stage for what was the new atmosphere. Which is limitation, working more, becoming more reliant on digital, having space. And in some ways, it physically limited us, but in other ways, I think it also brought a lot of people to the internet. It brought a lot of people together. Just reflecting back on 2021, the very beginning of 2021, we started doing the Midheaven podcast. So we're coming up now on 2 years here in the new year of doing this. So throughout the entire Saturn transit, I feel like it's been really cool to kind of develop a following a little bit on internet land and really connect with people even in spite of the physical limitation.
Yeah, we'll be dropping that knowledge too.
Yeah.
Saturn Aquarius style. So I love that we are able to time it with Saturn and both of us having North Node Aquas.
I'm really curious to see, because you kind of wrapped on the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction at 0 degrees, because we know, like, 0 degrees is a pretty potent degree for any sign. But it will represent the excess of the sign before it.
Right.
So as Pluto comes into Aquarius, that's going to be really interesting. Like, Pluto's entering Aquarius saying, okay, now everything, like, the last 3 years has been a testing ground for, like now, test. Like, the big thing.
Yeah, I truly believe
And then Saturn goes into Pisces. What's your, I guess we'll do a video on that, but what's your kind of hot take on, like, where that might kind of change things in terms of some of the lessons that we might have in regards to Saturn?
Keyword and emphasis on change, because it wasn't until I factored in the meaning of Saturn and Pisces that it helped me slow down, because I was wanting to, everyone around the world got a really good insight into what Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, and Capricorn set us in the direction towards. So I think as this strengthened through Aquarius, a lot of people were wanting change. They were wanting certain things to come to pass. And I was one of those people, because we all had the answers. The truth is out there. But then I realized we're pushing too quickly, because relative to everything that started in Capricorn and strengthened in Aquarius, everything, Saturn representing the totality, is going to happen Pisces when Saturn is in Pisces, the end of the sign, the end of the world. And it made me realize, oh my God, now that Saturn is direct and all the stuff we were saying is starting to come true, lets us know, well, it was always true, but we're seeing more evidence of this. Now coming into Pisces, I truly believe that the effects of what was cardinally done in Saturn Cap are going to happen worldwide collectively in Pisces. And that's super serious.
And to see Jupiter leave Pisces, where it's like, I see this as people being like, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. Like, that's just, you're just paranoid, you know? Like, you're just, especially with the trines that we've seen through Scorpio season. So it's going to be interesting to see Saturn show up and go, no, this is the new harsh reality. And I think where Pisces is different from Aquarius is where Aquarius is like, I go my own way. Or I go against the grain a little bit. Pisces is more kind of like, okay, well, you know, you have to go and sit and, like, think about it and reflect on stuff and consciously take that separation and do something with it. It's really, it's like, okay, do you want to go to a hospital or a prison, or do you want to go to like a temple or like a retreat center, right?
It would be interesting to see what happens with prison reform, especially in light of, I read a post from a private prison. I don't know if you sent me that.
I sent it to you,
You sent me that, right.
How much money they make. They make an insane amount of money. Private prisons.
$7 billion to 151 million or 7 million. Yeah, that's wild. But I mean, given that Pisces represents that, it'd be interesting to see innovations in prison reform, prisons, people getting let out, more people coming in. Like, we'll see.
Well, Jupiter right now is highlighting some stuff, and in a lot of ways, you know, Pisces can be very secretive. So I think Jupiter and Neptune is we're only seeing select pieces of what's going on globally. But I will say that, not to be like conspiracy theorists, but just seeing some of the images and the things that are coming out of China in regards to some of these quarantine camps. There's videos and pictures coming out of like these massive camps that are out there that have been completed, and like people are still being moved to quarantine camps. Very Pisces. And I also think we're going to see a continuation of just mass migration. So seeing the images over this last week of, you know, people coming from South America all the way up through Mexico. Mexico saying that they're having upwards of excess of 5,000 immigrants a week. And they aren't knowing. And it's from all kinds. I mean, they said it was like over 40 different countries. So it's not just South America, but
peak of 2023.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are trying to escape, and they're trying to get out of areas where they don't have freedom, or they're not having support.
And the science behind this, you want to study immigration when Pluto, Uranus was in Virgo. And I love that you mentioned the cardinals. I feel like if we research 2010 and 2013 when Saturn was in Libra, and in 2016 when Jupiter was there, that'll give us insight with 2020. And then in the future, we can kind of see how that'll affect Aries more individually. But I mean, that is just amazing. The whole notion that Virgo says, I'm Italian, you're Czechoslovakian, you're Nigerian. Like, it's just these very different. Virgo shows you how each person is unique, or each point of the clock is different. But Pisces says we're all one. You know, it connects all that. And you can see that in migration where it's like, well, we don't need borders. You know what I mean?
Well, we can also see that just with having Jupiter been in Pisces over this last year. I mean, gonna say some confrontational things. There's some things that people are probably not gonna like, but I look at this and I'm like, man, Saturn leaving Aquarius, where it has become the social norm to ice people out or to make them feel separate from the masses or the groups, and cancel culture is alive and real.
Yep.
We're also seeing lots of changes in terms of new groups that are evolving, in terms of identity. I'll just leave it at that. It doesn't matter if it's your gender, if it's your political affiliation, just lots of identity things. And I think that all of the titles and everything that we're getting kind of caught up in many ways is also separating us. So then once we get into the Pisces realm, now that everybody's been accustomed to feeling separate and isolated and different and wanting to be defined, then it's like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter. Just like, it doesn't matter what country you come from. It doesn't matter what your religion is. Forget your roots.
Right.
Like, we're all one, which in reality sounds great, but it's not, because we're going to lose our cultural identities.
Which is the Neptunian illusion.
Right.
I don't think I've heard that like that from anyone else but you right now. And I think it's important to illustrate, because that's the end game. Whether you believe in a transhumanistic agenda, we can throw that out the window.
The next one's going to be religion.
Oh, yeah.
Religion. You guys will see that over the next couple of years. You'll see mass leaders of churches and other faith beliefs. And
you heard about the Pope on Mount Sinai creating the new 10 Commandments?
Yeah, the new 10 Commandments
for climate control.
Yeah. So it sounds like the shadow government told the major religious groups what's up, and they were like, if you still want to be, tax free, then
tax free, right?
Yeah, you better get your shit together. Yeah, I mean, oh man, I think that it's cool. I mean, for us, it's felt like a 7-year Saturn's return, and so. And maybe you guys have heard us say that before, but like, Mike and I both have a stellium of planets in Capricorn, so it's like as if 2017 to 2020 wasn't brutal enough. But then we had Saturn go into Aquarius and it hit our North Node, so it's felt like 7 years of just constantly getting run over by a truck. But now that we're coming out the other side, I think it's kind of interesting, and I'm kind of excited to
lay blueberries.
Yeah, to see like as Saturn goes to the later degrees of Aquarius, what kind of emerges. Like something will like crystallize. Because I've always noticed, at least in my clients' charts and also just like globally following some of these transits, when Saturn leaves a sign, he leaves a gift. So I'm curious what that may be, and I want to show you guys actually what it's going to look like as Saturn is coming into the later degrees of Aquarius. So as we're filming it, it's around 19 degrees.
The third decan is the decan of Venus. So it definitely it starts off Uranian, innovative, and then Mercury adds like the 3D details, and then Venus is the polish and gloss over it, or the sociological implication of.
Looking pretty Saturnian here at the end of this year. Sun, Venus, Mercury, Pluto, Saturn, all in Aquarius. It's gonna be a cold winter.
It's gonna be
a cold winter. Yeah. So that's some really heavy Saturnian energy just on the very beginning of the winter solstice, and then we'll have that new moon. Once Saturn breaks out of 20 degrees, it goes beyond that. It's coming into the third decan. So you're looking at towards the end of December of 2022, we start really seeing the power of these kind of Saturnian themes out in the world.
And speaking of power, we know the ruler of Capricorn is going to be second house to the sun. So what does that speak on as far as finances in the market?
Well, I mean, I feel like I'm like a broken record. I mean, I've been talking about this a lot on my channel, but it's like people don't realize like right after Christmas, economically, everything's going to go to shit. And I'm not saying that, I mean, I'm not a financial advisor, but it's like, dude, you're going to have a Mercury retrograde that's going to be happening, that when it turns retrograde, it's sandwiched between Pluto and Venus, right? So you've got the South Node ruler coming into conjunction with the North Node ruler, and Mercury is retrograding. if you guys saw what happened last year.
We're not even talking about Pluto square the nodes yet. Like, yeah.
But last year, this is when all of the stuff that was going on with the Supreme Court behind the scenes in regards to abortion banning was actually happening behind closed doors with judges and public officials before all of that stuff came out later in the spring. So I told a lot of people last year, I'm like, look, take a look at what's happening, you know, December of 2021 and January of 2022. If it's a shit show, look at where Capricorn is in your chart. Likely it's going to be a shit show at the beginning of 2023, but with Venus and Pluto and Mercury coming into conjunction, I'm actually rather concerned. And I feel like it's going to be that we're finding out that retailers are not performing as well post-Christmas, that the Fed is getting ready to raise interest rates. They don't want to spook people at the end of the year, and they're trying to hold back some kind of information that's getting ready to come out in terms of some kind of official reform of banking, of major institutions, could be even like crypto regulation, because all that's going to try and Uranus and the North Node. Much of this we may not see until Aquarius season, but still food for thought.
And I can't help but think how a lot of the astrology coincides with Nostradamus' 2023 predictions.
Oh my God, you sent me that video, and I was like in bed listening to the whole thing, and I was like, yes. China and Russia, what? Yeah, so he was like, supposedly Nostradamus was like predicting that there was going to be like a catastrophic event with either Russia or China, which would have a domino effect, and it would affect all the other nations. What else did he say?
Civil war in America, the complete collapse of the world economy, and some countries will never recover. Yeah. Vladimir Putin.
Oh, is supposed to die. He literally said a Russian president. Yeah. Well, have you
seen, gonna get he's gonna avoid an assassination attempt end of the year 2023 and then die of an illness.
Have you seen his chart? It's a shit show. He's got like, I think, Saturn in opposition to his Pluto.
Is he a 10th house Libra?
He's a Scorpio. He's a 12th house Libra, Scorpio rising.
He's Scorpio rising?
Yeah, and he's got Saturn going through his 4th, and it's opposing his Pluto.
So Uranus is in his 6th of health. That's unexpected health complications.
I think he is sick, and I think that also like he doesn't want people to know, and I think that probably why he caused some of the problems that he's caused most recently. Not getting involved in the war talk, but he does have this belief that some of the territories was originally Russian.
Like Kaliningrad?
Yeah. Remember, was you that sent me that thing about that map that like vanished from history, and that there was like this whole other culture relating to ancient Russia that was like they don't talk about anyway. So whether or not it's that's
actually,
the
I don't
case
think
or not,
I want to see that. But I like that you said that, because some people were saying that there's a land between Poland and another land that Russia can claim as their territory, and it could possibly spark World War III. Huh. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the U.S. just monopolized on what was tension and jumped in and found a way to make money and launder money. I mean, especially in the wake of the news the last week or so, just finding out that the whole, FTX Binance thing does have very strong ties to money that was definitely washed through that whole process. Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy. The plausible deniability is so strong. I think we're also getting ready, because Saturn is in your Uranian's ruled sign, so there's just certain unexpected, unpredictable events that I think the last decade of Saturn will spring on everybody that little to no one will be able to adapt to.
One thing I learned is you don't want to fuck with Saturn at 29 degrees.
29 degree Saturn.
Yes. So
I see that in the chart and I'm like,
I remember living in LA and reading the Sabian symbols and like looking to like all the like later degrees. And obviously Capricorn has this more military energy to it. Not like a soldier like Aries, but military, Pluto generals, like tanks, things. Right when Saturn was going in and out of Capricorn and back and forth into Aquarius, I remember I was living in Silver Lake at the time and like walking around the block to go and get a coffee and like seeing like all of these like military grade vehicles and tanks and all these things, and like it was right in the midst of like March, April when they were doing like the mandatory lockdowns in Los Angeles where they had curfews, you couldn't be out driving, like nothing. And I remember like looking around and being like, where's Saturn? 29 degrees. Mm-hmm. So to see Saturn move to 29 degrees
it makes me think of what Pluto 29 will be.
Super psychic.
Oh yeah. So I one thing that you mentioned about this that really triggered something. Saturn behind Neptune is the whole phenomena of, as is their responsibility, people who govern nations cannot tell civilians the truth. there's just certain war reports, disclosure reports that if they told people, people wouldn't show up to work. And I feel like with that Neptune semi-sextile, more of this information is being leaked, whether by the government or against the government. And I think that's going to be with the Uranus square. Like, no one expected the DHS leaks to come out.
Yeah.
So, you know, this could be top secret knowledge that a whistleblower gives out that changes everything before
Speaking
Pluto.
of that, welcome back Project Veritas to Twitter.
Yes!
Yeah, I saw that today, which is really quite something, because I'm like, he was talking about whistleblowers and stuff in regards to exposing things within the government relating to rings. We'll just leave it at that.
I'm gonna look up the birth date of Project Veritas. I think it's I know he's a Cancer, but I think it's an Aries.
I think it's just going to be so interesting because the South Node is still in Scorpio, guys. So conjunctions to Pluto are definitely going to bring out certain truths. And like there's going to be stuff that's going to be emerging,
Mm-hmm.
I think, in regards to where our tax dollars are going, what public officials are doing, what they're investing in, what they have their hands in. You know, Mercury is about documents and data and information and like analysis. So I think that it is possible that we may find with the conjunctions to both Venus and Pluto that you may actually see, and I'm going to make this prediction, that there is probably going to be another major possible inside trading opportunity that the government is going to monopolize on. Like right before COVID, lots of people buying stock in like, you know, some of these pharmaceutical companies and also like moving shares and investing in stuff. You may see something very similar, but we won't hear about it until down the road. But with Venus being so close to Mercury's retrograde during Capricorn season, I think there's going to be an exchange of information with government officials that we will never know. It's secret because it's conjunct Pluto. But it can also involve war or oil or something in regards to some kind of internal kind of scandal that's going on with like our government, especially because it's in the late degrees. Something else that caught my attention also was when Venus comes into conjunction with Saturn, and that'll be at 24 degrees right around the end of January. But obviously Venus-Saturn conjunctions are like a new phase, but at the same time it's also going to be pretty significant because it is the ruler of the North Node. So the Saturn energy gets really strong from about the 22nd on.
And if we take into account the last February that they were conjunct, then we had the quarter square with Mars and Venus when Mars was retrograde in Aries. Then we had the opposition that we're going to have in Sagittarius. So this completion is going to really, of course, spark a new cycle, because the next time Venus will be with Saturn, it's in its exaltation in Pisces. So I think the difficulty we had with the previous conjunction, this will give us so much more closure in your relationships with people and the projects you're working on. I think the limitations you had, you've cleared with this previous cycle. And it'd be amazing to see what Mercury will do as our minds gain more understanding. But
once it's direct, and it's coming out of shadow, actually.
It retrogrades in Capricorn?
It does, yeah, at the end of December.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a financial crash for sure. I'm sorry.
Well, I just think the Mercury-Venus stuff is definitely, it's kind of messy. So then Venus leaves the conjunction to Saturn. We see the Sun coming for Saturn. And it looks like the Sun-Saturn conjunction is going to be at 27.
Nine numerology. Project Veritas was founded 2011 during Saturn Libra. So Saturn Pisces, Saturn Aries will break it through, which is very interesting. I'm going to do a video on Saturn oppositions, and I'm going to highlight Trump and Kanye. Trump literally got kicked off Twitter when Saturn was opposite as Cancer. Yeah. Ye got kicked off Twitter when Saturn was opposite as Leo. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. And then when it went through their 8th house, he got Parler. And now he's telling Elon to call him daddy before he comes back to Twitter. I love that. I saw that. Trump. I was sitting there looking at it being like, okay, he's either going to come back at a certain time. Yeah. I was expecting a response, like, because it was right when Mars was going retrograde over stuff. Yeah. Or I was like, he's not going to do anything because he's going to be like, fuck you. He's so invested in Truth Social. In Truth Social, yeah. And then he wants Elon to call him daddy. Yes, and he already dissed Elon too, so it's consistent. And I mean, I feel like he kind of has to. And then Ye breaks his verbal fast. Ye broke his verbal fast. That was funny. There was a clip of him recently talking about, like, you know, he he
had a good 72 hours of not talking.
That part, and also like someone from a certain group that he won't mention tried to like limit him or whatnot, and then after he said he couldn't say it, he was like, it was a Jewish person. Like, just classic Ye, like just unintentionally hilarious. I think we're gonna see so much major breakthroughs from Geminis like him and Trump. It's like, and that's the major theme, like regardless of them, like every single body, all of us as a collective, what we're breaking into we've never seen before. It's like a whole digital currency world, post-war period, that will highlight the war that's been going on that we haven't seen. Because there's a whole world that, you know, they live that we don't live, right? Yeah. And if anything, this Pisces might bridge those both worlds and facilitate this full-on exposure.
I'm curious to see, because I think the retrograde degree was 26 degrees of Aquarius. I don't remember. It was 25 or 26. Yeah.
So Saturn reached 26?
I think Saturn reached 26. So not only is mid-February significant because technically Saturn finally gets out of where it's been in shadow, but the sun will be there as well. And it's going to be, obviously, you know, the sun that's going to be in its fall. So I'm kind of curious to see how this plays out. I think that, you know, the 14th, 15th, 16th of February may actually be the time where some of the lessons in regards to wherever Aquarius is in your chart finally kind of comes full circle and it becomes something solid and like you become aware of like what the lesson was. Yeah,
it was like 25, 26. That's deep.
Yeah. And then Saturn goes to 28 degrees with the moon. And what's really interesting is right when Saturn hits 29 degrees of Aquarius, so that'll be February 27, 2023, Mercury will come into conjunction with Saturn, and then Saturn will change signs, and then also we're going to see Pluto is going to change signs. So the volume gets turned up really, really high with 29 Pluto, 29 Saturn around the end of February. Lots of karmic stuff going on, turning points, completing chapters in both Saturn in Aquarius and Pluto in Capricorn. So like lots of Saturn energy still. Then which one hits first? So Saturn enters into Pisces on March 7th. And then Pluto will enter into Aquarius on March 24th.
The beginning of the end of the world.
What are you making of just when Saturn gets to the last degrees? It looks like it's going to be, like, what is that, March? Yeah, it looks like it's going to be March 7th. 29.
29 Aqua.
Yeah.
We know that the 2008 era, Obama gave us quote-unquote change. And after same-sex marriage got agreed on, now we're looking towards it getting repealed, potentially. So that's an opposition. This is the beginning of a brand. It's the end of an old paradigm and the beginning of a transition into a new world order, Saturn Aries. So I really love how you say like Saturn leaves a gift. 29 Pluto, 29 Saturn. I don't think we'll ever see that ever with 24 Neptune. This is just mass realization. I think it's revelation that comes too late. And so this is where, like, if you already knew what was up, this revelation won't be too late for you. If you didn't, you won't have that much time to adapt. Not that you're screwed, but it's just going to be very collective, culturally shaking, shifting. I really feel like 2023 is 2020 on steroids. Just without
full moon in Virgo.
Oh my God, yeah.
So at least we know somebody will be fact checking.
Imagine if it was reverse. Like now the people are fact checking the fact checkers.
I mean,
and the
people are doing that.
Basically, yeah.
People are doing that. Now it's crazy. Now it's crazy because the fact checkers have gotten called out on not being independent sources, and so now there's stuff just blatantly being posted in like major news outlets. I've seen several things. I think I sent you something earlier that was talking about a quote from the Washington Post where it's like they've gotten. This is from the Washington Post. I saw this on a thing that did not get fact checked, where somebody posted something and they were like, yeah, it's been verified that they said, you know, more than, like, I think they said 58% of people who have gotten the V word have died. Not total. They're saying of the people who have died from the virus, 58% of those people were V'd. So, and then I'm like,
and they overtake those who are unvaccinated.
Exactly.
Okay.
So then I saw somebody post this, and I'm like, where's the fact check? And there is no fact check on it. Why? Because it was posted by the freaking Washington Post. It's just, I don't know.
Is this true?
It's
shout out to Fauci and your legacy.
Isn't he stepping down like as we speak?
Who knows? And it's
he's supposed to be.
It's very symbolic because as a Capricorn, he's stepping down post Saturn going through his sign. Ghislaine Maxwell is in jail post Saturn going through her sign. R. Kelly's case might be dismissed, but his was.
I heard about that. About he's supposed to be supposedly getting out,
released from jail. Just like I know he will because Bill Cosby got released from jail. So when I saw that, I was like, R. Kelly's not gonna stay in jail. And he did his whole career for 30 years as a Capricorn. That's a Saturn cycle. He got sentenced for a Saturn cycle. So I was like, if he gets out, Saturn is saying that he's not guilty. I'm not going to say that he's not a bad man because this is a Sag moon cap sun. So he has the devil archetype. He's a wild man. I'm not going to say that he didn't have a questionable past, but he's not guilty of what he's accused of if he gets dismissed. I'm just telling you that right there.
We all know that the judicial system is not fair.
No.
There is no fair check and balances. It's just not, it's not a thing. So. I don't know. I feel like, and I laugh about this because it's true. You see like astrologers saying this, or like, you know, people talking about Nostradamus, or like other people who have made predictions, whatever. But like looking at the astrology of 2020, the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter conjunction, and looking at the astrology of 2023 to watch Pluto go into Aquarius, Saturn go into Pisces, and watch the North and South node come into a square with the fixed sign Pluto Aquarius, Jupiter conjunct the North Node. I feel like that's scarier because the fixed signs are only going to carry forward what the cardinal signs started.
Yeah,
and it's going to be more, oh, well, this is the new norm moving forward with we control money, we shut things down, we don't have to give you information. I don't know, it's a toss-up, but I think you're right. I have thought all along that when we come out of the Mars square Neptune in March, so it's kind of interesting that this kind of corresponds with the same timeline. We see Mars direct. Mars is actually coming out of shadow around 25, so right here. And right when Mars is coming out of shadow with the retrograde.
The Venus sextile, that's amazing.
But it's also Mercury, Sun, Neptune square Mars. So the Mars retrograde ends with a Mercury, Sun, Neptune square, which means...
So you're getting ready to move with something, very excited, but then you see something on the news that just probably misleads what you're about to do or confuses what you're about to do, right? Like, yeah, you want to go out, but lockdown or some shit like that. So.
Think about the stelliums that happened in Pisces earlier this year. I mean, Venus was there, so it was nice, but it was like Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Venus, Sun, all in Pisces. Like, nobody knew what they were doing. So many people started traveling, and then a ton of people got sick.
Yeah. Question. I wanted to ask, when's the next lockdown going to be?
Well, Pluto's going to go in and out of 29 degrees several times. Right? So when Pluto goes into Aquarius, it's only going to be there for 2 months, and then it's going to go back. And when it does, it's going to go retrograde, and it's going to square the nodes. So if you want my opinion... I feel like we have to wait until the North and the South node hit the 29-ish degrees of Aries and Libra. When it squares Pluto, we're probably looking at that next summer, but they're going to say they're doing it because of war.
Yeah, that part too.
Yeah, and you can't go places because of war. They're going to be scaring people, telling people that there's going to be, you know, like threats of nuclear warfare and drills and I feel like 29 degrees of the cardinal signs are much scarier than the fixed signs because the fixed signs are like, no, I don't want to move. But the cardinal signs is like, it's a shootout.
We're going this way. It is what it is. No, I love that analogy. I feel like for you weirdos out there, and I say that respectfully, you know, Aquarius is the sign of the weirdo or the genius. You know what I'm saying? For those of you, the major crucial thing here was the Uranus square. And so Saturn is the mandatory operating system that the government made us download on our phones. But Uranus squaring it was the jailbroken operating system. Yeah. The fuck it system. iOS fuck it, Windows fuck it, so that we can counter these false narratives. But the coolest thing is, for those of you who have been pioneering psychic arts, astrology, and all these sorts of,
there's gonna be lots of people who are gonna need help. Basically,
Pluto, that,
and you can't replace our job.
So many of you can't. That part too, and then we're gonna see the official mainstream push into astrology. Like Pluto Aqua is gonna bring this, but the cool thing is, a lot of the predictions, a lot of the work we've been doing, like there's a lot of things that we do that are true. Like there's a lot of things that, like if you just take one episode we do, there's a lot of gems that you can take each of our gems and expand it, take us on a talk show and do, but they're just overlooked. They're not going to be overlooked anymore. Like people are going to look more extremely at these weird things and gifts, and they're gonna treat that like mainstream versus what they used to be treating, in light of all the work we did in Capricorn and the evidence all piling up and hitting. And Saturn and Pisces facilitates that change.
Pluto and Aquarius, I think, is also possibly going to be big, where people are going to start really bringing on astrologers and working for tech companies or larger companies for launches, or politicians are going to be more open about the fact that they're consulting with astrologers and they're planning things, and
because they're giving their results. Capricorn is heavy on results. So this is where all the frauds and the scammers are all getting exposed. All of you who've done the work, someone from a younger generation on you has a TikTok of you, like, oh wow, this is everything that this person has done and this is what's happened. Now you're viral, you don't even know why. So like it's a huge reaping of that. And I think one thing that Candace said nonchalantly that I think is dead on, you're gonna see a lot more people incorporating these arts, and you're gonna see government pushback outlawing this.
Oh yeah, for sure. 100%. 100%. Because, you know, astrology is a very Iranian thing, and it's about being able to tell the truth. Right? It doesn't see gender or anything in regards to your nationality or any of that. It's a chart, or it's just studying the stars. So, you know, people who have the ability to kind of foresee the future can be very dangerous, because they have the ability to foresee what's coming, and there has been a huge push to be able to keep people from questioning the narrative, or keep people from being prepared. Because
you will see Candace, or you will see somebody predict something about a political leader, and it will come true, and now you're a threat. Now, well, you're a terrorist. You're spreading disinformation, even though it came true. So it's like, it's very dangerous. It's just that thin line that can switch extremely, and that thin line is Pluto Aquarius.
I think the one thing that I do like, you know, just to kind of like wrap up, I mean, we'll definitely do more when we get closer to some of these transits, but I'm liking that Saturn and Pisces is in a sextile with Jupiter, right? Because Pisces is saying focus on the manifestation or the dream or the vision, and build it and share information. I also really like that Neptune is in a sextile with Uranus. So to see the dream team of Pisces and Taurus work together can be really wonderful. And I think that it can be revolutionary in a lot of ways, even if the world is not quite ready yet.
The technological advancements are going to be insane. And that's the thing, like, you know, Neuralink, like a lot of these technological advancements that you see conspiracy theorists worry about are good advancements. Like, I don't want you to think that we're anti-technology. Like, these are necessary. We need to actually go digital. Like, there's a lot of things that we need to do.
Well, there needs to be,
but it's the people behind
more freedom. And I think the whole Saturn and Aquarius versus Uranus and Taurus, in a nutshell, has been decentralization with Uranus and Taurus versus politics, big banks, corporate media, you know, people who are saying, no, we stick to the old ways. This is how things have always been. So there's been friction, but we will see some kind of breakdown happen in this next like 6 to 8 month period, which will start paving the way for all of these placements that are in Pisces and Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus. It's screens, it's scanning things, it's being able to have voice verification, facial verification, being able to, I think, maybe live more in a virtual reality world for some people. And I don't know, it really depends on how you vibe with some of these placements. But it is the slow breakdown, I think, before there is going to be a new cycle that's going to be born. And I'm very much looking forward to, I think, Saturn and Neptune in Aries.
Oh my God,
because
yes.
that's when everything that hasn't been working collapses. And hopefully we're going to go back to living in caves and worshiping the goddess. That's what I'm hoping for. That would be really nice.
Like, think about it. Think if every step of your personal development was to prepare you for that, so that you can now repopulate and like create anew, just like Aries, and start from scratch. And it's literally the pipeline. Everything we're going through now is the pipeline from, by the time Saturn is in Leo, we have built the new society based off of new individuality in ways new people identify with newly. And that society is going to be filled with advanced technology, gifts, unless it's a nuclear holocaust. But honestly, it could be a quick acceleration curve to rebuild this technology. But and I say it like that because anything can literally happen from now until then. Like, it could go that bad. We could settle our differences, have like a utopian paradise. I think it'll be somewhere in the middle, but we'll see.
I don't know. Let us know, what do you guys think? What did you learn from Saturn in Aquarius? Where was it transiting in your chart? Has it been just as much of a doozy for you as it was for us? And big thank you to everybody who's been liking, commenting, sharing, supporting. Saturn's been pretty good to us. Well, we pretty much named it after a Saturn placement. So the midheaven was really kind of based off of the structure of being able to stand on top and like show the world something. So thank you guys. Knowledge.
Oh yeah, stay tuned for the end of season 2.
Yeah, we're coming up there. Coming up on 100 episodes, so pretty soon. And we'll see all of you guys very soon. You guys take care.